Hello and welcome to the first lesson for Illustrator. I hope you enjoyed the history of the monogram. We're going to take a little bit of this idea and use our initials for this project. It's interesting to see that only a few letters put together in a certain way can communicate to the society what your status is. If you're married, if you're single, and maybe even your wealth. Today, we can now see letters put together as a letter mark to help communicate personal or company branding. This identifying mark should help communicate what the company is producing. And right here is a perfect example of how designers are doing this. This letter mark logo, CB Dukan, perfect example of how letters get put together to make a mark. So here's a couple more examples. Show you, and really is important, is that the letters link together, that they become one mark. So the A and the S are just uniting into one mark. Same with the T and the K, KJR. So pause this video and search online for logo letter marks. I recommend that you follow along. This is not due, but I would save this because you will be using this future project. You will need to fill in the rubric form on the bottom. We want you to examine the characteristics of a typeface. Typefaces are designed by a designer to convey a special feeling or an emotion to help communicate an idea. For this project, you'll be designing a typographic letter mark using your initials like monograms. Please only use the font family listed on Canvas. Also look at the typeface characteristics. All fonts are either Mac OS standards or PCs. You can also sync your Adobe fonts if you own the Adobe font software on your personal computers. If you go to school and are using the schools, you will not be able to have access to the Adobe fonts. Here's a few examples of hand-drawn letter forms from a student. The only difference between this example and what you're going to do is that you're going to use Illustrator to create your letter marks. When you work in Illustrator, still think about this as creating quick sketches. This shouldn't take a very long time. Just double click and you'll see that the file will download, and then you'll click and open up the file. So hopefully you're looking at what I'm looking at. But if you're not and you're stuck, you can go to Go in a Mac and go to your applications. PCs, go to your applications and find the software, double click and open the software. You've opened up Illustrator and you hit open. And again, we'll give you a dialog box to where you can find the project, and then you'd hit open. If you still can't find Illustrator, maybe you haven't installed it yet. Make sure that you can see the Creative Cloud icon on the top of your screen, on the menu bar. Click on that, and it'll allow you to see all the apps you have available. These are all the apps I have available, and I have installed Illustrator. The other thing I want to talk about while I'm here is that in here, you can see that there is Font Manager. Click on that. Here, you can see that I already have active fonts. You probably don't have any active fonts yet until you load new ones. Again, you cannot use this unless you actually own Creative Cloud. If you're using the software from the university, you do not have access to this. The first three that you see are three of the ones that I've listed for you to use for this assignment. So they are available for free with Creative Cloud. Browse more fonts. Here we'll open up the website to Adobe's fonts. And you can just type in whatever fonts from that list I have provided. So like Futura, it will show you exactly all the different styles that are available for Futura. And up on the corner, if it is available, is active fonts. And you can just click and activate it. After I have activated, you can just close this down and double check that it is actually existing in your active fonts. And then close this window, look over the font family list that I provided, and choose 3 fonts to use. Please look over the information provided on this document and follow along. Starting out, I'm going to show you a couple of tools in Illustrator to help you design your lettermark. Remember to think about your brand. You found your fonts I'm going to use for this project just to show you: Helvetica, Baskerville, and Futura. Zoom in. You want to click on your type tool, which will show new options in your control panel, which is revealed here as the character panel, which allows us to edit the font family. So let's click on this arrow and set our font family. You can see the list of everything that's available that's on your computer, Mac or PC, and what you have added from Adobe Fonts, Baskerville or Futura. I'm going to pick Helvetica that's already provided in the computer for this first row. I also want to make sure I set the font style, which could be light, regular, and bold. This is the weight of the letter form. Choose regular. And then the other thing to really think about is size. Let's set the size at 300. It's not found in the drop, so you're going to have to manually write 300 in. We will talk about the other options in future videos. Let's get back to filling out this document correctly. Abbreviate the name of the style by using only the first 3 letters. And then I'd populate this information for the row of Font Family 1. So I've got my regular, bold, and oblique for Helvetica. The next 2 rows, you'll do 2 more font families. Also, I want to talk about, make sure you pick one that's serif and one that's sans serif. So this is a sans serif, and then the next one, Baskerville, is my serif. So at least choose one that is different. And then copy and paste, and then change the style, whatever style you want. You don't have to use the same ones that I've picked. I'm just going to change this to regular. And again, you'll do this all the way down, and you put the correct style for each one. Everything's labeled correctly now, and now I just need to start with my initials. So we're taking our initials, we're manipulating them. 12 is going to be too small, so I'm going to start at least at 72. I'm only going to pull out a little square, and then I'm going to put K and L in. I'm going to make sure that I'm actually doing Helvetica regular style. You cannot scale or rotate a font within its box, but make sure you're using select tool and go to type and outline it. It makes it into a shape, and now I can hit shift. I always hold shift and drag to make sure that the shape stays its accurate size. I want it to size correctly and not squish it. If you don't have the shift, you can really distort it. And we want to make sure that we're distorting it in the correct way and not the bad way. No squishing. So once you have outlined it, you have to do one more step, which is go to Object, Ungroup. Now they're separate. Now L is one and K is the other. So again, I grab the T tool, I double check that the size is correct, that it's Helvetica, and I'm going to change this to bold. And then I'm just going to drag a little and then put my KL. And then I'm going to get my selector tool. I'm going to go to type and I'm going to outline. After I outline, I can do shift drag to really get it out into the space. And then I want to go to Object, Ungroup. One last time, just in case you need it. I again make sure I'm on the type tool and I drag out just a little so that if it does load the type in, it's just a couple that I can delete. And again, make sure that it's at the highest. I'm going to change this to outline. Oh, I need to make sure that I'm on the select tool to change to outline. Outline. Then change objects to be their own. I can still select them using the select tool. Shift, hit one of those points, and pull it out to be large. So we have been using what is called a bounding box to scale the letters. You can use it to rotate And if you don't see that box around it, you have it turned off. And right now, all we can see is the anchor points around the letters. I can move it around the page, but I don't have the quickness of rotating it and rescaling it. So it's nice to have that on. So I'm going to go back and put on my bounding box. The things that are under view will affect the document window. This ruler, if you don't have the ruler on, you can turn the ruler on and off. It also affects the visibility of what we call guides, which are great. You can pull them out to make sure that you have everything aligned. It also has a smart guide. A smart guide will really tell you exactly what your select tool is on. So this is indicating I'm on a guide. It'll show me that I'm on the path of an object. It'll show me where the anchor point is, so I can get the math of exactly where this location is on this artboard. Grids are a tool to organize any element placed in a design. Grids add structure to your design, so I highly recommend that you use them. So you can snap to the grid. So if I did this letter form will snap directly to the grid. It'll line up exactly to it. Unfortunately, the pro is the same as the con. So it will only let me snap directly to the grid and no in between. That's what's available to help you with your design under the menu view. I'm going to turn all these functions off under the view so you can see clearly what I'm trying to do in this lesson. We're going to now ungroup these letters. So you can go under Object and Ungroup. The letters are now separate. Now if you select it, you can see that the bounding box is just around the one letter, which makes it easy to just rotate the one letter. But the one thing I did do is I didn't change it to the correct style, so I have to start again. I want you to learn how to manipulate the letters, which now are shaped. In this design, I'm using my binding box just to move the images around, rotating them and sizing and scaling them within the page. Also, you can crop the image by moving the image off of the white page. And this one should be a color version. So I want to come back here. Remember I said make sure you know where your swatches are if you want to use your swatches, or if you want to just make your own colors. I like using spectrum and pick one, and then I can use the eyedropper to select the color. So they're both the same color, and then now I can take this one and just slightly change one of the colors, spectrums. So it's still relatable to the color. So one more thing I want to talk about color is that there are different types of color. So there's RGB that would look like this, and what I was using, which is CMYK. They both have the spectrum color and the bars that you can move across to change, but that might be why you're not seeing the same four colors. Remember that you can also change the outline. This is the fill and this is the stroke. With the stroke, remember to play with the width of the stroke. All right, we're going to move away from the color and go back to the black and white, and I'm going to talk about the first of each row, Helvetica, Baskerville, and my Futura. And I want you to first just look at the different typefaces. Even if they're both the same sans serifs, they're very different in their design. So right off the bat, we can see that the letter has already been changed from a font to an object because we can see the anchor points. Also, the bounding boxes is around the letter forms and no longer grouped. So let's grab the eraser tool, and then we can erase breaking up the form. If you hit Shift, the eraser will go straight across. So we can break it up in a couple of areas. But when we use the eraser, it takes a chunk of the letter, but it does break the form apart. So if I just wanted to move the letters, I can create a new mark just by a quick erase shift. Now we still want these letters to be connected in some way. All right, so we have the K and the L, and we've created a new mark using the eraser. And we can also select them both using the selection tool, hit Shift, and kind of expand it to fit the size of the square. Again, it's important to really activate the whole square. And that's a good option. Remember, these are supposed to just be quick sketches. So that's how you use the eraser tool. All right, now we have them with the bounding box around it. And we can still rotate. So even though we're going to use these cutting tools, you can rotate them and cut them. So I'm kind of trying to play with the serif. And then what I can do here is I want to select both of them at the same time. And then I'm going to introduce the knife. I can't do the shift and go straight across. It's really just more of a sloppy kind of cut. But I can do ziggy zags, and it can do a little bit more free flowing cuts. And the difference between the knife comparative to the eraser is it doesn't take a big chunk of the letter out, as you can see. It just literally cuts it. And again, remember that you can rotate and move everything around. And this one, maybe I'm not going to quite crop. All right, we're going to move to the last row, and I'm going to show one more tool. I'm going to show you how to use the pen tool to do so. So the first thing we're going to do is go up to the pen tool and hit that little arrow so we can see all the options. Now you could just start with the pen tool, and then when you hover, it will show the anchor point, and then you'll be able to manipulate it. But because we know we're just going to subtract and not add, let's grab just the delete. So we're going to go over to the K, and if you hit Command, you can select it. And now you can go over the pen tool and change by deleting the anchor points. So I was thinking that we didn't do a lot of putting images within images, which we did see in the sketch. L, move into the K, because I'm going to go into the color, which you can do also here by double clicking, and I'm just going to grab that circle and go all the way to the top for the white and hit OK to the K. I can flip the fill to an outline and change the outline into a black color. Because remember, I told you I want this to stay black and white. So that's there, but I'm kind of losing the L if I want to be more literal, because it'd be nice to do a few that are literal and some that are very abstract. So let's go back and fill it with that white again. The K is projecting the L, or you can bring the L and reduce the size so it's smaller and it literally fits within the K. Go back to your pen tool. So I'm going back to it being very abstract. I can go into my reflect tool, click on the tool, and then I can hit preview and I can flip the L the other direction. Creating negative spaces. If you are more advanced in Illustrator, please feel free to use more of the tools. Last thing to cover is saving. So we go to File, Save As. Make sure you know where you want to put it on the desktop, in a folder. Name the file with your name. I know you all are thinking, but we don't have to turn this in. You don't have to turn this in, but you need to have it done because I will ask for this later. So make sure this is an Illustrator working file that you can go back and play with if you want, and save it. And then do File, Save As if you want to show anybody. So you might want to get this done and you just want to show everybody in the group what you've done, or you want to show me. You can make it into a PDF. And the first thing under General is I would take all of these off. Basically, this first one just allows you to continue to edit it. It creates a thumbnail, and then optimizing for web. All of these can be really great, but you don't need it when you're trying to keep the file small so that you can transport it onto the internet somewhere or to me through email. So if you're going to put this on the discussion board for us to talk about, then you want this to be at the smallest size possible. Compression, where we can go to smallest file. And if you click on that, it'll reduce the size for you and you can save the file. Now you can see your images. I didn't do all of the pages. You can see where it's cropped off because it went off the page. And we can have the name of the font. All 9 of your pages should be selected if you made sure that when you did save as PDF that use artboards all is selected. That was a lot of information. Can't wait to see what you wrote on the rubric.